There are things that happen in our city, in the world, in our classrooms, and in our workplaces. There are things that happen that occasionally make us say, well, there, but for the grace of God goes I. How many of you have said that this week? Now, when you say that, when you have that moment when you think, man, I'm, as they would say back east, I'm right some lucky. I'm blessed is what we say. I'm blessed. And we mean it. Right? We mean it. But usually when we say that, it's because we've seen somebody who's not, or who we think is not. How many of you drove past the park this morning to get to church? What did you see in the park? Dozens of people sleeping on the ground. Dozens. And we might be forgiven for saying, oh, there, but for the grace of God go I. And there's nothing wrong with that sentiment, except that it's wrong. Because it presumes that God doesn't grace people who sleep on the ground. When we count ourselves lucky and say, but that person, oh, that's a hard row to hoe, we presume that God doesn't grace that person. That's not how God works. God is not like some gigantic dispenser of good fortune. That's not how God works. God, in fact, looks at the world quite differently than that. And it's suggested in Scripture that God looks first on those who are sleeping on the ground, who are at the end of their lucky rope, who have not made a good impression on the rest of us. And God says, grace and peace be with you. That's a hard thing to get your head around, because who doesn't want to feel blessed? Anybody? Anybody who would rather be on the other side of the equation? I didn't think so. The good news is you're not. Nobody is. There's a very common thing that goes around in social media these days that has more of the gospel in it than anything I will say today. And it is that you will never in your life look into the eyes of a person whom God does not love. That's the truth as Jesus tells it. And that is the truth that Jesus asks us to see in the world. In our classrooms, in our workplaces, in the park, in the street, in the city, in the world. You will never look at a person, ever, whom God does not love. If you let yourself think that way, you will never be the same again. I promise you. You also will never be as comfortable again. I promise you.